My name is Caroline. I'm the engagement manager at Iowa PBS. You heard the tail end of our laughter of Beth and Jerry's shirts. They're sporting the Storm Lake Times shirts tonight. So I wanted to just say a quick thanks. Thank you all for joining us for this advanced screening of Storm Lake, a film that will come to Iowa PBS in November from Independent Lens. It was great to spend the evening with all of you safely at your homes. Hopefully you were comfy on your couches and were able to enjoy the film. Just a reminder that we are now live for the discussion portion of tonight's event. So you're welcome to ask any questions over in the chat box, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. So as I had sort of introduced Beth and Jerry, you will see we're joined by three very special guests tonight. We are so lucky, and I want to introduce each of them to you all. Art Cullen, as you all saw in the film star of the show, is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. He's the editor of the Storm Lake Times, and he is an author of his book, Storm Lake, A Chronicle of Change, Resilience, and Hope from a Heartland Newspaper. Next is Beth Levison. She is the director and producer for Storm Lake, and she's produced other Independent Lens films, such as Women in Blue and Made in Boise, and you saw an intro from her at the very beginning. Joined by Jerry. Jerry Risius is the director of photography, and he also co-directed the film with Beth. He has over 25 years of experience as a DP, and as he mentioned, he's Iowa born and raised from Buffalo Center. So welcome the three of you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
I think we've got a few questions prepared as folks kind of think of things maybe on their mind. But just to open up the conversation, I just wanted to start with a question about journalism, local journalism, and ask, in an era of misinformation, how can local journalism bring the truth to communities? Maybe start with Art, but feel free to jump in, any of you.
Well, you know, local journalism, as we've known and practiced it, has concentrated on news and events, that is facts. And we're now into an era of pervasive propaganda. And so I think you can be assured that most newspapers, every legitimate newspaper that I know of, is in a search for accurate, factual information. And I think that's how we battle misinformation, is by going to reputable news sources. And if you have a question about that, there's all sorts of, there's a site out there called NewsGuard that you can look at that vets these news sources.
Yeah, great resource. It sounds like one of our questions is for Beth and Jerry now, asking how did the idea of this film come about?
I can jump in and just hand it over to Beth in a second. I'm a Buffalo Center native, so I grew up in Iowa. I moved to the East Coast in the 80s, and but always kept contact with my parents and with all things Iowan. So once I saw the Pulitzers announced in the spring of 2017, the headline was, you know, small North Iowa newspaper wins Pulitzer. So I immediately became intrigued, went online and read Art's articles that won the Pulitzer, and shortly after called him, and we had a real nice kind of camaraderie building chat about all things Iowan. And I asked if he would mind if I came out and spent the afternoon with him. And so later that summer I did. I spent an afternoon filming with him, and I realized almost in that very shoot that there was a real story here. If you remember in the beginning of the film, there's a part where actually we go to pick up some newspapers, and the film Art tells me not to worry about coming in because there's going to be nothing happening there. So I say, no, I'm going to follow you anyway. So I went in, and sure enough, we got in, and he opened up an honor a styrofoam cup and pulled out 7 $1 bills. And I thought, this guy's writing amazing articles and laying out papers and pulling in, single dollar bills to make his monthlies. And so I thought this was really spectacular. So I went back and I spent a couple of months trying to edit a character reel, reached out to Beth as well, who I teach with at School of Visual Arts in New York. And took a while, but then I was able to convince her to come on board.
And actually, it wasn't that I really needed convincing. I was working on these other films that I was delivering to public television at the time, like Women in Blue. And so it was about summer of 2018, and Jerry was still trying to get the project off the ground. And he said, hey, I don't know if you saw, but Art Cullen wrote an editorial in the New York Times today. Did you see it? And so that was sort of the beginning. I read the article, thought it was incredible. His voice really moved me, and I just found it very stirring. And I just thought, wow, if I'm so moved by this editorial, maybe there's something here. And then Jerry and I were working together very shortly after that to take lift off.
Love that. Love that Jerry has always been in tune to his roots. I think us Iowans appreciate that. The storytelling the rest of the world about us. So there was a question, a few questions for Art. Art, do you feel that your reporting has helped to protect the immigrant population in any way? Do you think that local conservatives are listening to you?
I couldn't say that our reporting has protected immigrants in any way. I don't think I could know that. I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
I mean, we were barking at Steve King for 20 years, and he's finally gone. But we didn't have anything to do with that, I don't think. The Republican Party got rid of him and substituted him for somebody else who's anti-immigrant, Randy Feenstra. So I'm not sure that we've cured anything, but we keep on hammering away at it. And I think that honest conservatives can have an honest dialogue with an honest progressive. And I'm a progressive, a liberal, if you will. And conservatives who are interested in facts and interested in nuance, and I can have a conversation. I can be fairly skinflint myself, and so I can have a conversation with conservative people, and when you're covering the school board and city council, this division doesn't really apply, and it's all kind of a foreign construct that's imposed on Iowa.
Yeah. Well, there are many folks interested in the future of local journalism and the Storm Lake Times and rural Iowa newspapers. Some folks are asking, sounds like Rob from Davenport was curious. Well, first he said, as a fourth generation Iowan, it gives me great hope for our flyover to see such good stories. Mr. Cullen, do you think that independent papers will still be viable in 20 years?
Yes, I do. Independent news outlets, anyway. I'm not sure what the future of the print edition is, but yeah, I do. We're just going through a really painful and tumultuous transition right now, and at the same time, we're being assaulted by this wave of propaganda and vitriol directed toward traditional news gatherers. And so it's a really challenging period for us. But I think, you know, information will always have value. Information and knowledge are power, and that always has value. And I think we need to reacquaint readers with the idea of our value proposition, frankly, which Beth often talks about, is we're not very good at that.
Yeah, Beth and Jerry, if you have, from your research in creating this film, any, I guess, innovative ideas or examples of things that maybe other newspapers are doing that you think is the future, or just unique ways that people are staying afloat?
Well, you know, I think what's just so interesting is that there's no one size fits all model. So, you know, Art and the Cullens and the Storm Lake Times, they subsist through subscriptions and ads. And now they're part of the Western Iowa Journalism Foundation.
Yeah.
But, you know, some newspapers are really exploring a fully philanthropic model. Some are just for profit. So what's interesting is there really isn't one size that fits all. But I think that one thing that we've really thought about is that it's not just on the burden of the newspapers. It's not just the burden of the newspapers to figure it out. It's also a burden or responsibility that we sort of all have to take on. And, you know, I think that so many young people today have no idea even how to read a newspaper. And I admit, like 3 months ago, I took out a newspaper and I showed my kids the sections. And so, you know, we're all responsible for, you know, how can we increase media literacy? And, you know, as was in the chat during the screening, you know, are folks subscribing? If you're a local business owner, are you placing ads? Are you even engaging with your paper and writing letters to the editor? So it's such a, you know, of course, the business model kind of maybe is paramount, but it's such a two-way street.
There was one person in the chat who said they got an online subscription during tonight's screening, Art. So,
oh, great, thank you.
You spoke a little bit about things changing. So someone was asking the question, how has online advertising replaced the classifieds and other display advertising within the like physical paper?
Well, it hasn't. That's the problem. Digital revenues nationally are about 10% of what digital ad revenue in newspapers is, about 10% of the advertising in the print edition.
Oh.
And so we're losing that advertising is not transitioning from print onto digital newspaper sites. And that's because Google and Craigslist and any number of other digital media sites have kind of, you know, this taken our business away from us. You can run a help wanted ad on Indeed.com for free. That's tough to compete with. And so the advertising model has been disrupted. And so we're trying to make a transition to primarily reader revenue. It's going to have to be supplemented, as Beth noted, by philanthropy through the Western Iowa Journalism Foundation, where Western Iowa Journalism Foundation.com, where you can make a tax deductible donation to a nonprofit that supports the Storm Lake Times, the Carroll Times Herald, the Jefferson Herald, La Prensa, and we hope to, and the Coon Rapids Enterprise, and we hope to expand it to other newspapers as we begin to raise money.
Awesome. Great answer to the next question, which was about the Western Iowa journalism, that someone was wondering, how did that come to be? So maybe not a question for you, but Art, maybe you can speak to, does it have the potential to be used by other small newspapers?
Yeah, it came to be, Doug Burns from the Carroll paper and I knew before the pandemic that we were heading into we were in choppy waters before the pandemic. And then we began to prepare this foundation, to set the foundation for the foundation 2020, and then it was approved by the IRS in January of 2021. And that's how it got started. We were, as the movie illustrates, we were going broke, and so was Carol. And so were a lot of there was a half dozen newspapers in Iowa that closed during the pandemic. County seat newspapers, the Centerville Iowegian, a daily newspaper, one of the oldest newspapers in Iowa, closed. So so we had to get this foundation going just to save us, and we did. We got a $15,000 contribution from the Western Iowa Journalism Foundation, thanks to donations from Iowans mainly. And that, combined with the PPP program, helped us make it through the year. And things have improved financially for us. We broke even this summer for a few months. And so we think maybe we've hit bottom. But we just know that we're going to need to raise money going forward over the next 5 years, probably, while we make this transition to reader revenue.
Yeah. A question we had received ahead of time, sort of more lighthearted and a fun survey for the three of you. We heard such great comments in the chat about the production of the film. Folks loved the editing and the storytelling and the music. So a question for all of you: what was your favorite moment creating this film? Are there any standout situations?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Favorite moments. That is a good one.
Who's the greatest NBA player ever?
I know. You wake up Monday morning, you have a favorite song, but on Friday night you have a different song for your favorite song, for favorite on Friday. I'll just chime in quickly because I think the letter to Tom is my favorite, because even though there's like not a lot of action, I think it really sums up so much of what journalism is, number one, but also the passing kind of the torch within the family. So I always really appreciate that moment when you're reading that, and then when Tom is delivering the papers right at the end in Marathon, I think it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's one that always stands out for me. There's so many.
But Art did not enjoy reading that over and over and over again.
Right.
Oh, we shared the full length article, I think, in the chat. So those.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, Darla. Thank you.
It's funny. I remember when Dolores was reporting the story of Emmanuel Trujillo. It was this really exciting day. Jerry and we had told the crew, we think it's going to be a slow morning and not much is going to be happening, and you guys can stay behind and we'll go. And the office was so busy, and Dolores, she'd gotten a tip and she was talking about her source, and it was like you were really on the inside of this cool story. And then she played, pressed the button, and we heard Emmanuel Trujillo singing on the show, and it was just a really exciting moment. And she was just discovering a local story, but it really felt like this moment of discovery for us. And then at the same time, like there was a story about a dangerous corner and an accident, and Tom was covering the zebra mussels, and there was so much going on. They couldn't figure out like who was going to cover what and who was going to take what photographs, and we couldn't include everything, but it was early in production. And for me, it was this real, it was just really eye-opening, like how busy this office and this newspaper really was. And it challenged my assumptions, like about so many things in those moments. So that was a really memorable day.
It was, and I have to just chime in. It was so great because it was, everything, we're in a town of like 14 or 15,000 people. So we talked to we talked to Emmanuel, or Dolores talked to Emmanuel and said, "So can I come over to your house?" And he said yes. So we went over there. In 5 minutes, we were there. So we got in the car, we went over, and and then she interviewed him. So it was all everything was able to take place within minutes, or 10-minute drive across town.
And he just invited you in and sat on his couch and said, "Take my photo." And it seemed, it was cool to watch the story unfold too from the inside.
Yeah.
Art, did you have a favorite?
Well, yeah, I do. I leave the theater every time when they talk about Julio Barroso. I leave because I get so pissed off and angry and emotional over the fact that this guy is stuck in Guadalajara driving a truck and is getting robbed every week. And we're complaining that people aren't serving us fast enough. And this guy's stuck in Guadalajara and he can't come to Storm Lake where everybody loves him and he wants to be. And Joe Biden isn't doing anything about it. And Donald Trump didn't do anything about it. And neither Barack Obama. And so if we can keep reminding people that there's this great, great tragedy going on, and it's right here in Iowa, right here in River City, and we're all just turning away from it.
Well, I think there was a lot of conversation of appreciation for your transparency and your news reporting. So lots of comments to the whole Cullen family for all the good work that they do.
Well, thanks. And then there's a great scene that didn't make it. A lot of stuff ended up on the cutting room floor. And it was Beto O'Rourke was in the office, just like Pete Buttigieg was. And he had a paper cup of coffee sitting on the floor, and Peach came by and picked it up and took it into the back room. And so Dolores went and got the cup of coffee and brought it back to Beto, and Beto chugs it down. And I thought, now there's a legitimate guy. He must be from El Paso. He drank the cup of coffee. Anyway, it didn't make it. It was a great scene.
But just to tell the viewers, actually, so that didn't make the film, but what everyone watched tonight was a 1-hour version of the film. And so what's going to be on public television on November 15th is the full length, which is 90 minutes. So there are some scenes that you all missed seeing this 1-hour cut down, and we did the cut down so that we could have more conversation with you.
Yeah. And the full film, the full 90 minutes will be on Iowa PBS November 15th at 9. And if you're joining us from outside of Iowa, check your local PBS station to check for time and date to make sure you don't miss it. There is a good question for you, Art, about how do you select your editorial topics? Do you have a favorite one that has had a positive impact that was especially important to you?
Well, I'll wake up tomorrow morning and have an editorial for the next issue of the paper, God willing, and the creek don't rise. Well, I guess I'd have to say that my favorite editorials were the ones that won the Pulitzer. Because it was about the Des Moines Waterworks lawsuit and the issue of surface water pollution in Iowa from the ag chemical complex. And that lawsuit and then the Pulitzer Prize brought attention to this really life or death question of climate change in Iowa and the way we approach the landscape. And we're just starting on to a different conversation about how Iowa can be prosperous and sustainable. And so I think that's what I'm proudest of.
That's great. Oddly, great question for all of you about awards, Academy Awards. Someone's wondering about entering this film into any sort of, anybody have anything?
want to take it, Jerry? You want me to?
No, well, you should.
It
Let me
deserves
just.
an Oscar.
I can start this, but like, yeah. So we started, early on in the gosh, I guess it was June of this
Yeah.
year, entering into festivals, and we've gotten into a number of very prestigious festivals that have received the film very well. We've won several festivals, Best Direction, Best Audience Award, AFI Film Docs. We were in Full Frame. We won Woodstock, Duluth, and we won a great award with Freep up in Detroit. But we're now at that point where we're considering the entrance, I guess, or the process of going through the award ceremonies. And I think that I might pass that part over to you, Beth.
Well, actually, yesterday we received this incredible honor. So there's an organization called the International Documentary Association. It's called the IDA, and that's what we call it. And they listed Storm Lake as a contender for one of it being on the short list of one of the best films of the year. And once you get, in our world, once you start getting certain awards, it increases the profile for the film, and then maybe you kind of can try for an Academy Award. So
Sure.
We decided today that we are going to submit the film to the Academy Awards, and we're going to hope that we get to the next stage, which is when you get shortlisted, and we'll put it in Emmy contention later down the year, later down the road. So, we're really trying to build now like support and enthusiasm for the film, which we've been doing since June. So if you like it, this is all part of the puzzle. So please post about it, whatever platform you like, tell your friends, tell folks to watch, because also it's about the movie, but for us, it really is about more. It's about elevating art's voice, a really unique Iowan voice nationally. It's about starting a national conversation about local news and how important it is. So we're trying to do lots of things. It's not just about the movie.
Mhm.
And I would also just tack on there that, when art won the Pulitzer, it wasn't really about the prize. It was trying to get dark money out of local politics. And I think we're trying to do the same. We're, I think the award ceremony only elevates the conversation. And so that's our real hope, is that, we can do that.
Yeah.
It really deserves just best score, best musical score, easily, slam dunk. Andrew Bird, who has roots in Iowa between Dyersville and Dubuque, did the score for the movie, and it's just, you don't even hear the music, and then all of a sudden they're clipping these bundles and you hear violins plucking, and that's a perfect score because you don't even know it's there. And then at the end, there's this song that just kicks your butt. It deserves at least best score, if not best cinematography, best editing, and best direction, of course.
A total
Thank
slam
you,
dunk
Art.
Yeah.
all the way around. Total slam dunk.
But viewers ought to be aware that Andrew Bird is a big deal, and he agreed to do this, and gave him a pretty good deal, and so it's kind of cool that a guy with Iowa roots did the movie.
Well, really quick as we close, lots of folks have asked, we've shared lots of different ways people can help support local journalism. If you three would each share in like a quick 10 seconds, other than subscribing to their local newspaper, what is one other way that they can support their community's journalism?
Civic engagement,
Yep.
Be engaged, find out who, where the meetings are, and, and become engaged, like follow it.
I would say I don't want to say place an ad, because I already told you guys to play. I already encouraged placing an ad. How to, I don't know. I almost want to say believe in your local newspaper, show your support for the local newspaper, show support for your reporters who are bringing you the news, you know, write a letter to the editor, tell someone about how good your local newspaper is. You know, they're not always just going to be there. And that's a big problem that we're facing. So ways that you can make them seen, I kind of is what comes to mind.
Yeah.
Well, I think you know, people aren't used to the idea of making donations to a newspaper, and we're going to need them.
Yeah.
We got to adopt the PBS model, and we're going to need them. And so the Western Iowa Journalism Foundation, these are independent, family-owned newspapers. This is not Gannett, and it's not the New York Times. We're just you know, ink-stained wretches out here in the middle of nowhere trying to make a go of it. And we really need your donations. So thank you.
Yeah. Art, is there any way that viewers tonight could get Beth or Jerry's t-shirt?
Oh, yeah. Right. We can just call the office at
Okay.
1-800-732-4992, 1-800-732-4992, and we can get you a t-shirt.
You even sounded like
Also, you can get them at the Western Iowa Journalism Foundation has t-shirts available made by Raygun.
Yep, we shared those. We shared those in the link, but they were really interested in Beth and Jerry's shirts, so they got others.
Great. Okay.
So both options.
Glad you changed, Beth.
Email at times@stormlake.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all that we have time for tonight. Oh, wait. Jerry's showing us the back. I don't know if I can read it.
Oh, it says Buena Vista County's hometown newspaper.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks for modeling. If
you get one, model it, take a selfie, post it.
Right.
And tag the Storm Lake Times and the movie.
Yes.
We'll love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, as our time is winding down together, I just wanted to say thank you again to everyone for joining Iowa PBS tonight for this VIP watch party featuring Storm Lake. And of course, a sincere thank you to Art and Beth and Jerry for a great conversation. It was a wonderful time to spend more time with you guys and to hear your insight about the film so that we could share it with all of the Iowa PBS fans. So please join us for future virtual events here on OVEE. Our next screening is an advanced premiere of an Iowa PBS produced series called Iowa's Wild Weather. And the first episode is Drought on November 9th at 7 o'clock again, similar format to how we have been doing these with a screening and conversation. So don't forget to join us for that. And you can find information about upcoming events and Iowa's Wild Weather at iowapbs.org/events. As Beth had mentioned, this was a 60-minute cut-down version, special for screenings. The full 90-minute version will premiere on statewide Iowa PBS on November 15th at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you're joining us again outside of Iowa, please just check your local PBS station. So thank you again for joining us, everyone. And don't forget to support your local news. And
Thanks
have a great
for
day.
having us.
Yeah, you've been awesome, Caroline. Just been all of Iowa PBS. You've been really good, just great and generous to us. So thank you.
Great partners.
It's been wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you, Caroline. Yeah.
Yeah. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.